Look at your hands for a moment. Turn them over and simply observe the skin that covers them, the way it moves when you flex your fingers, the texture that has changed gradually over the years. Most people look at their hands or their face and see only one thing: time passing. They assume that what they see is inevitable, that the body simply wears out like an old machine. But what if that assumption is incomplete? What if the changes you observe are not simply the result of years accumulating, but rather the result of specific processes that have been operating quietly, beneath your awareness, for decades? And what if understanding those processes reveals something unexpected? Not a way to stop time, but a way to work with your body's own remarkable systems for maintaining itself. That is the territory we are about to explore together. A journey beneath the surface to understand what the body is actually doing, and what it has been trying to communicate all along. You are listening to the Longevity Library, where we archive the wisdom of healthy aging, the architecture of living well, understanding the body's natural capacity for resilience. There comes a moment, often quietly and without warning, when the reflection in the mirror seems to belong to someone slightly unfamiliar. The face that looks back carries the same eyes, the same expression, but the terrain has shifted. The skin rests differently along the jaw. The texture has changed. And in that moment, a question often arises that has little to do with vanity and everything to do with the mystery of being alive. What is actually happening beneath the surface? This question is as old as human consciousness itself. Across centuries and civilizations, people have observed the body's gradual transformation and sought to understand its deeper logic. The ancient Greeks wrote of the body's humors and their balance. Traditional Chinese medicine developed elaborate maps of energy flowing through channels beneath the skin. Indigenous healing traditions across every continent observed the connection between how people lived and how they aged. All of them were asking the same fundamental question: is this decline inevitable? Or is something else at work? Modern research has begun to offer answers that would have seemed almost unimaginable to previous generations. Not answers that promise to stop time, but answers that reveal something perhaps more valuable: the realization that much of what we call aging is not a fixed destiny, but a series of biological conversations. The body is constantly communicating, constantly responding, constantly adapting to the conditions it encounters. And those conditions, it turns out, are far more within our influence than was once believed. This is not a story about chasing youth or fighting nature. It is a story about understanding the body's own architecture, the remarkable systems that maintain it, and the quiet ways we can support those systems to function well across many decades. It is a story for anyone who has ever looked in the mirror and wondered what lies beneath, and for anyone who understands that the way we live today shapes the body we will inhabit tomorrow. The hidden scaffolding. Beneath the surface we see in the mirror lies a world of extraordinary complexity and elegance. The skin is not merely a covering, not simply a decorative layer that happens to age. It is the body's largest organ, a living, breathing boundary between the self and the world, performing functions that are essential to survival long before they are related to appearance. At the core of the skin's structural integrity is a protein so fundamental to life that its very name comes from the Greek word for glue. Collagen forms the scaffolding upon which the skin's architecture is built. Imagine the frame of a house, the beams and supports that give a building its shape and prevent it from collapsing under its own weight. Collagen serves this same function throughout the body, not just in skin but in bones, tendons, ligaments, and blood vessels. Woven throughout this collagen framework is another protein called elastin, which does exactly what its name suggests. It provides the ability to stretch and return to form, the biological equivalent of a high-quality spring. Together, these two proteins create a matrix that is both strong and flexible, capable of protecting what lies beneath while allowing for the constant movement that defines being alive. For much of our lives, this system operates with remarkable efficiency. Specialized cells called fibroblasts work continuously, producing fresh collagen to replace what naturally breaks down. This is a dynamic process, a constant cycle of construction and renovation that keeps the skin resilient and responsive. The body, in its wisdom, understands that structures must be maintained, that nothing built by biology remains static. But around the fourth decade of life, a gradual shift begins. The rate of new collagen production starts to slow, while the rate of existing collagen breakdown continues at its previous pace. This is not a failure of the body. It is a natural adjustment, a recalibration of resources that has been part of human biology for as long as there have been humans. The fibroblasts become less active, less responsive to the signals that once spurred them to work. They do not die. They simply grow quieter, slower, less inclined to rebuild at the same pace. The visible results of this shift are familiar to anyone who has watched themselves or their loved ones age. The skin begins to thin. It loses some of its plumpness and resilience. Fine lines appear where skin once folded smoothly. And over time, the pull of gravity becomes more evident along the jawline and cheeks. These changes are often described as the skin aging. But a more accurate description might be that the skin is no longer being maintained at its previous level. This distinction matters more than it might seem. If aging were simply a matter of time passing, there would be little to do but accept it. But if aging involves a slowdown in maintenance, then the question becomes whether that maintenance can be supported, encouraged, and perhaps partially restored. The evidence increasingly suggests that it can. The unseen erosion. Understanding how to support the body's natural maintenance systems requires first understanding what disrupts them. Just as a well-built house can deteriorate prematurely if exposed to constant rain, harsh sun, or structural neglect, the body's scaffolding can be compromised by forces that operate slowly and invisibly over many years. Among the most significant of these forces is light itself, specifically the portion of the solar spectrum that is invisible to the human eye. Ultraviolet radiation penetrates far deeper into the skin than visible light, reaching the very layers where collagen and elastin reside. There, it initiates a cascade of molecular events that damage the structural proteins directly and generate reactive molecules that cause further harm. This process unfolds over decades, which is why its effects are often not fully apparent until later in life. The sun exposure accumulated during childhood, during young adulthood, during years of outdoor work or recreation. All of it leaves a quiet mark. The skin does not forget. By the time changes become visible in the mirror, the structural weakening has been underway for a very long time. The mechanism here is worth understanding, not for the sake of technical knowledge, but because it reveals something important about how the body responds to challenge. When ultraviolet radiation strikes the skin, it creates free radicals, unstable molecules that damage whatever they encounter. The body has systems for neutralizing these molecules, systems that rely on antioxidants derived from food and produced internally. But over time, the cumulative load can overwhelm these defenses, and the damage begins to accumulate. This is why the concept of protection extends far beyond the idea of preventing sunburn. Sunburn is an acute injury, a visible signal that damage has occurred. But the damage that leads to structural changes in the skin happens well below the threshold of visibility. It is silent, cumulative, and profoundly influenced by daily habits. Another form of unseen erosion comes from within, from the very fuel that powers the body's activities. Sugar, in its various forms, is essential to life. Every cell in the body uses glucose for energy. But when sugar levels in the blood remain consistently elevated, a chemical reaction begins that has significant implications for structural proteins. This reaction is called glycation, and it involves sugar molecules binding directly to proteins like collagen and elastin. When this happens, the affected proteins form crosslinks with each other, becoming stiff and inflexible. They lose their ability to function as they should. A collagen fiber that has been glycated is like a sponge that has been soaked in syrup and allowed to dry. It becomes brittle, compromised, unable to perform its structural role. The compounds formed through this process are appropriately named advanced glycation end products, and their acronym, AGEs, reflects their association with the aging process. They accumulate slowly over time, and their presence is associated with the stiffness and loss of resilience that characterize aging skin and tissues throughout the body. Here again, the mechanism reveals an opportunity. Blood sugar levels are not fixed. They are influenced by what we eat, when we eat, how we move, and how we manage stress. The same meal consumed by two different people can produce very different blood sugar responses based on their overall metabolic health, their muscle mass, their activity levels, and even their sleep quality from the previous night. A third form of erosion, perhaps the most subtle of all, involves the nervous system itself. The human stress response evolved to handle acute physical threats, situations where a burst of energy and focus could mean the difference between survival and death. In such situations, the body releases hormones including cortisol, which mobilizes energy, sharpens attention, and temporarily suppresses systems not needed for immediate survival. This response was never designed to be activated chronically. But modern life, with its constant demands, its endless sources of worry, its sleepless nights spent anticipating problems, can keep the stress response engaged for months and years at a time. And cortisol, when present continuously, has effects that extend far beyond its intended role. Among those effects is a direct impact on collagen. Cortisol can signal the body to break down structural proteins, redirecting their components toward energy production. It can also suppress the activity of fibroblasts, the very cells responsible for building new collagen. The result is a double blow. Increased breakdown combined with reduced production, all driven by a nervous system that cannot find rest. The connection between mind and skin is not mystical. It is biological, measurable, and deeply rooted in the body's design. Every moment of sustained worry, every night of poor sleep, every period of chronic anxiety leaves a mark on the body's structural systems. The face that looks back from the mirror after years of stress is not just older. It is also reflecting the cumulative burden the nervous system has carried. The architecture of support. Understanding what damages the body's structures leads naturally to the question of what supports them. And here, the evidence points not toward single interventions or miracle compounds, but toward patterns of living that have been observed across cultures and throughout history. Traditional diets from various parts of the world offer intriguing clues. The Mediterranean region, parts of Japan, certain areas of Scandinavia, all have produced populations that consistently live long and remain vigorous into advanced age. Their diets differ in many details, but they share certain fundamental characteristics. They are built around whole foods rather than processed ones. They include adequate protein from various sources. They feature abundant vegetables and fruits. They provide the raw materials the body needs without overwhelming it with things it does not. The specific nutrients involved in maintaining structural proteins are increasingly well understood. Collagen itself is made from amino acids, the building blocks of all proteins. 3 amino acids in particular, glycine, proline, and lysine, appear especially important for collagen formation. They are found in protein-rich foods of all kinds, from animal sources like fish, eggs, and meat to plant sources like legumes and certain grains. But having the building blocks available is only part of the equation. The body also requires a catalyst to assemble them into functional collagen. That catalyst is vitamin C, a nutrient so essential to this process that without it, collagen synthesis grinds to a halt. The classic deficiency disease scurvy, which causes wounds to stop healing and tissues to fall apart, is fundamentally a failure of collagen production due to lack of vitamin C. For most people in the developed world, scurvy is not a concern, but marginal vitamin C intake. Enough to prevent deficiency, but not enough to support optimal function, may be more common than is generally recognized. The body does not store vitamin C, so it must be obtained regularly from food, and many older adults, for various reasons including changes in appetite, difficulty preparing food, and medication interactions, may not consume as much as they need. The best sources of vitamin C are familiar ones: citrus fruits, berries, bell peppers, broccoli, and leafy greens, all provided in abundance. The key is consistency, ensuring that some source of vitamin C appears in the diet each day, not intermittently, but as a regular feature of eating patterns. Another nutrient that has drawn increasing attention is not a single compound, but a class of substances found abundantly in plants. These are often referred to as phytochemicals, and they include the pigments that give fruits and vegetables their vibrant colors. Beyond their role in plant biology, many of these compounds appear to support human health by interacting with the body's own defense systems. The deep purple of blueberries, the red of tomatoes, the orange of sweet potatoes, all signal the presence of compounds that have been studied for their potential to support the body's resilience. They do not act directly on collagen in most cases, but they help maintain the environment in which collagen exists. They support the body's systems for managing oxidative stress, for regulating inflammation, for maintaining the conditions under which structural proteins can thrive. The question of absorption. There is another layer to the nutrition story that deserves attention, and it involves not just what we eat, but what the body is able to use from what we eat. Digestion and absorption are not automatic. They are complex processes that can become less efficient with age, and this inefficiency can mean that even a well-chosen diet fails to deliver its full benefits. Stomach acid production often declines in older adults. This may sound like a minor detail, but adequate stomach acid is essential for breaking down proteins into their component amino acids. Without it, even protein-rich meals may not provide the building blocks the body needs. Enzymes throughout the digestive tract also become less abundant, further reducing the efficiency of nutrient extraction. The gut lining itself changes with age, becoming slightly less permeable to nutrients in some ways, while potentially becoming more permeable to unwanted substances in others. The community of microorganisms that inhabit the digestive tract, collectively known as the microbiome, also shifts in composition. All of these factors influence how well the body can access the nutrients contained in food. This is why food choices matter, but so do food preparations. Cooking methods that make nutrients more accessible, such as slow simmering of meats to release collagen into broth, or gentle steaming of vegetables to preserve vitamin content while breaking down cell walls, can support digestion. Eating smaller, more frequent meals rather than large, infrequent ones can also help, giving the digestive system manageable amounts of work rather than overwhelming it. The practice of making and consuming bone broth, found in culinary traditions around the world, represents a kind of folk wisdom that modern research has begun to validate. Long simmering of bones and connective tissue slowly releases collagen, gelatin, and amino acids into the liquid, creating a food that is both highly digestible and rich in precisely the nutrients the body needs for structural maintenance. It is hydration and nutrition combined, a gentle way of supporting the body's needs. Water's deeper role. The subject of hydration is often treated as simple and obvious. Drink enough water, the advice goes, and hydration takes care of itself. But for many older adults, the relationship between water and the body is more complicated than this simple prescription suggests. The sensation of thirst diminishes with age. The signals that once prompted drinking become weaker, meaning that many older adults are mildly dehydrated without being aware of it. At the same time, the body's ability to retain water decreases. The kidneys become less efficient at concentrating urine, leading to greater water loss. And the composition of body tissues changes, with a gradual decline in the proportion of water they contain. This matters for structural proteins because water is not merely a solvent in which biological processes happen. It is an active participant in those processes. In the skin, water fills the spaces between collagen fibers, contributing to volume and resilience. A well-hydrated collagen matrix is plump and springy. A dehydrated one is flat and brittle. But drinking more water is only part of the solution. The body must also be able to hold on to that water and direct it where it is needed. This is where minerals come into play. Electrolytes like sodium, potassium, and magnesium help regulate the movement of water between different compartments of the body. Without adequate electrolytes, water can pass through without being retained where it matters most. This is why simple water, while essential, may not be sufficient on its own. The water consumed with meals, as part of soups and stews, or with a small amount of mineral-rich salt may be more effectively utilized than water drunk alone between meals. The tradition of starting the day with warm water and lemon, found in many cultures, combines hydration with vitamin C and a gentle stimulus to digestion. Foods themselves can be significant sources of water. Cucumbers, lettuce, celery, melons, and many other fruits and vegetables are composed mostly of water, but water that is packaged along with minerals, vitamins, and other compounds that support its retention and use. Eating such foods regularly contributes to hydration in ways that drinking water alone cannot match. The body in motion. The relationship between movement and structural health is perhaps the most direct and powerful of all connections. Every system in the body responds to the demands placed upon it, and the absence of demand leads inevitably to decline. This principle, sometimes summarized as use it or lose it, applies as much to skin as it does to muscle and bone. Movement stimulates circulation, and circulation is the delivery system for everything the body needs. Blood carries oxygen to tissues. It carries amino acids for repair. It carries vitamins and minerals and the signals that coordinate cellular activity. When movement slows, circulation slows, and tissues receive less of what they require. This is visible in the skin in ways that are easy to observe. People who are active tend to have better color, a healthier glow that comes not from products, but from well-perfused tissue. Their skin heals more quickly from minor injuries. It maintains its resilience longer. These are not cosmetic effects. They are signs of a body that is receiving what it needs. The type of movement matters less than the consistency. Walking, the most basic and accessible of all activities, is remarkably effective at maintaining circulation. The rhythmic contraction and relaxation of leg muscles acts as a pump, helping to move blood back toward the heart and through the rest of the body. A person who walks regularly is, in effect, providing continuous support to their circulatory system. Movement after meals deserves special mention. When food is consumed, blood flow is directed toward the digestive system to support absorption. A short walk after eating can enhance this process, while also helping to manage the rise in blood sugar that follows meals. The muscles, as they work, take up glucose from the bloodstream, reducing the load that might otherwise contribute to glycation and the formation of advanced glycation end products. Even very gentle movement, the kind that barely qualifies as exercise, can be beneficial. Stretching, Tai Chi, gentle yoga, all stimulate circulation without stressing joints or cardiovascular systems. The key is regularity, a daily practice of moving the body, reminding it that it is still needed, still capable, still alive. The sleep connection. The role of sleep in maintaining the body's structures is only beginning to be fully appreciated. During sleep, the body performs tasks that are difficult or impossible while awake. It repairs damaged tissues. It clears metabolic waste products from the brain. It consolidates memories and processes the experiences of the day. For structural proteins like collagen, sleep is a time of rebuilding. Growth hormone, which stimulates repair and regeneration throughout the body, is released primarily during deep sleep. Cortisol, the stress hormone that can break down tissues when chronically elevated, reaches its lowest levels of the day during the night. The balance shifts from breakdown toward repair. Poor sleep disrupts this balance. When sleep is insufficient or fragmented, growth hormone release is reduced, and cortisol may remain higher than it should. The body spends less time in repair mode and more time in a state of low-grade stress. Over months and years, this imbalance contributes to the gradual deterioration of structural tissues. The quality of sleep matters as much as quantity. Deep sleep, the stage during which the most profound repair occurs, tends to decrease with age. Finding ways to support deep sleep through consistent schedules, comfortable environments, and practices that calm the nervous system before bed may be as important for skin health as any nutritional strategy. The relationship between sleep and skin is visible to anyone who has seen the effects of a single poor night. The eyes appear tired. The skin looks dull. Fine lines seem more pronounced. These acute effects, if repeated night after night, accumulate into chronic changes. Sleep is not a luxury. It is a fundamental component of the body's maintenance system. The rhythm of days. Beyond sleep lies the broader question of daily rhythms. The human body evolved in a world of predictable cycles: light and dark, activity and rest, feast and famine. It is designed to operate on schedules, to anticipate regular patterns, to prepare for what is coming based on what has come before. Modern life disrupts these rhythms in countless ways. Artificial light extends the day far beyond sunset. Work schedules ignore natural cycles of alertness and fatigue. Meals are eaten at all hours, and food is available constantly. The body's internal timing systems, present in every cell and coordinated by master clocks in the brain, struggle to maintain order in this chaos. For structural health, these disruptions matter because the body performs different tasks at different times. Collagen production, for example, follows a daily rhythm. The activity of fibroblasts varies across the 24-hour cycle. Repair processes are concentrated during certain periods. When daily rhythms are disrupted, these processes become less efficient. The practical implication is that regularity itself may be a form of support for the body's structures. Eating at roughly the same times each day, going to bed and waking at consistent hours, exposing the eyes to bright light in the morning to set the internal clock, dimming lights in the evening to signal the approach of rest. These simple practices, none of them dramatic, collectively support the body's ability to maintain itself. The social tissue. Perhaps the most surprising finding from research into human longevity is the importance of factors that have nothing directly to do with biology. social connection, purpose, engagement with life, all appear to influence how the body ages. People who remain connected to others, who have reasons to get up in the morning, who feel needed and valued, tend to live longer and remain healthier. The mechanisms behind this observation are complex and not fully understood. Social connection influences stress hormones, cardiovascular function, immune activity. It provides motivation for self-care. It offers support during difficult times. It may even directly influence cellular aging through pathways that are only beginning to be mapped. For skin health specifically, the social dimension matters in ways that are both direct and indirect. People who are socially engaged tend to be more active, to spend more time outdoors, to eat more regularly. They smile and laugh more, which exercises facial muscles and stimulates circulation. They receive touch, which has its own biological effects, from the simple handshake to the embrace of a loved one. Isolation, by contrast, is associated with higher levels of inflammation, poorer sleep, less physical activity, and worse nutrition. These factors all influence skin health, just as they influence health throughout the body. The person who lives alone and rarely sees others may be at greater risk for the structural changes associated with aging, not because of any direct effect of loneliness on collagen, but because of all the behaviors that loneliness enables. The cumulative effect. What emerges from examining all these factors is not a list of isolated tips, but a coherent picture of how bodies maintain themselves across time. Protection from excessive sun, adequate protein and vitamin C, stable blood sugar, good hydration, regular movement, restorative sleep, consistent daily rhythms, social connection. Each of these factors supports the others. None operates in isolation. The person who walks regularly also tends to sleep better. The person who eats well also tends to have more stable energy and mood. The person who maintains social connections also tends to stay more active and engaged. Good habits reinforce each other, creating a virtuous cycle that supports health across multiple systems. This is why approaching aging as a series of problems to be solved with specific interventions misses the deeper truth. The body is not a collection of independent parts, but an integrated whole. Supporting it means supporting all of its systems together, creating conditions in which it can do what it has always done, maintain itself as well as possible for as long as possible. The long view. There is a tendency in discussions of aging to focus on the visible, on the changes that appear in the mirror and provoke concern. But the visible changes are only the surface expression of processes that have been unfolding for decades. The skin that sags today began its journey towards sagging many years ago, shaped by countless small decisions and circumstances. Taking the long view means understanding that what we do today will be reflected in our bodies years from now. The sun protection we use now, the protein we eat now, the steps we take now, all of it accumulates. The body remembers. It keeps a record of how it has been treated, and that record eventually becomes visible. This can be discouraging if viewed as a source of pressure, a demand to be perfect in every moment. But it can also be liberating. If the body accumulates the effects of our choices, then every good choice matters. Every walk, every nourishing meal, every night of restful sleep, every moment of connection with another person, all of it contributes to the body's store of resilience. None of it is wasted. The person who begins to pay attention to these things at 50 or 60 or 70 is not starting too late. The body is always responding to current conditions, always adjusting, always seeking balance. The habits adopted today will begin to influence the body today. The benefits will accumulate from this moment forward. The wisdom of traditional practices. Across cultures and throughout history, traditional practices have embodied principles that modern research is only now beginning to understand. The Mediterranean diet, with its emphasis on vegetables, fish, olive oil, and modest portions, provides exactly the kind of nutritional pattern that supports structural health. The Japanese practice of eating until 80% full prevents the metabolic stress of overconsumption. The tradition of afternoon naps in many cultures supports the body's natural rhythms. None of these practices was developed with knowledge of collagen, glycation, or circadian rhythms. They emerged from observation, from trial and error, from the accumulated wisdom of people learning to live well in their environments. That they align so well with what science is now discovering suggests that the body's needs are not mysterious. They are discoverable through attention and experience. The same is true of movement traditions. Tai Chi, developed centuries ago in China, turns out to be remarkably effective at improving balance, reducing falls, and maintaining mobility in older adults. Yoga, with its emphasis on gentle stretching and breath, supports flexibility and stress reduction. Walking, the most ancient of human activities, remains one of the most beneficial things any person can do. The question of individual variation. No discussion of aging and health would be complete without acknowledging the enormous variation among individuals. Two people of the same age can look and feel completely different. One may be vigorous and active while the other struggles with multiple health issues. Genetics plays a role in this variation, but so does the accumulated effect of all the factors discussed here. Some people seem to age well despite habits that would seem to predict otherwise. They eat poorly, never exercise, and yet maintain their health into advanced age. These individuals are real, and their existence reminds us that biology is complex and not fully predictable. But they are exceptions, not the rule. For most people, the patterns that predict good outcomes are the patterns that have been observed consistently across populations. The existence of individual variation also means that there is no single prescription that works for everyone. What supports one person's health may be less effective for another. Finding the right approach involves attention, experimentation, and willingness to adjust based on how the body responds. The person who pays attention to their own experience, who notices how different foods and activities affect them, is in the best position to make good choices. The limits of control. There is another side to this discussion that deserves acknowledgement. No amount of good habits can completely prevent the effects of time. The body will change. It will slow down. It will eventually fail. This is not a failure of effort or attention. It is simply the nature of being alive. The goal of supporting the body's structures is not to achieve immortality or to maintain the appearance of youth indefinitely. It is to live well for as long as one lives, to maintain function and comfort, to delay the onset of disability, to preserve the ability to do the things that matter. These are realistic goals, achievable goals, goals worth pursuing. The person who takes good care of themselves is not trying to cheat nature. They are participating in nature, working with the body's own systems, supporting what the body is already trying to do. The body wants to maintain itself. It wants to repair damage and preserve function. It has been doing these things since the moment of conception. Our choices can support this natural tendency or work against it. The practice of attention. At the heart of all these considerations lies a single quality that may be more important than any specific habit. That quality is attention. The person who pays attention to their body, who notices how they feel, who observes the effects of their choices, is in a position to make wise decisions. The person who moves through life on autopilot, never pausing to notice, is at the mercy of habits and circumstances they may not even be aware of. Attention can be cultivated. It can be practiced. It can become a way of moving through the world. The simple act of pausing before a meal to notice the food, to appreciate its appearance and aroma, to chew slowly and taste fully, is a form of attention that supports digestion and satisfaction. The act of noticing tension in the shoulders and consciously releasing it, repeated many times throughout the day, reduces the cumulative burden of stress. This kind of attention is not complicated. It does not require special training or equipment. It requires only the willingness to be present, to notice what is happening, to respond with kindness rather than judgment. It is available to everyone, at every age, in every circumstance. The body's story. Every body tells a story. The lines on the face record years of laughter and worry, sun and wind, joy and sorrow. The texture of the skin reflects nutrition and hydration, stress and rest, health and illness. The way a person moves reveals their history of activity and injury, their habits of sitting and standing, their relationship with their own physical being. These stories are not judgments. They are simply records. The body's way of keeping track of where it has been and what it has experienced. The person who reads their own body's story with curiosity rather than criticism, who seeks to understand what the body is communicating, opens the possibility of responding wisely. The skin that has become thin and fragile is not failing. It is telling a story of reduced collagen production, of cumulative sun exposure, of nutritional intake that may not have been adequate. It is asking, in its own way, for what it needs. The body is always communicating. The question is whether we are listening. The ground of being. Beneath all the specific strategies for supporting structural health lies a more fundamental consideration. The body is not separate from the rest of life. It is the ground of all experience, the vehicle through which we encounter the world, the means by which we love and work and play and rest. Caring for the body is not vanity or obsession. It is respect for the only vehicle we will ever have. This respect does not require perfection. It does not demand that we never eat poorly or skip exercise or stay up too late. It simply asks that we pay attention, that we notice when we are out of balance, that we make choices that support rather than undermine the body's natural tendency toward health. It is a relationship, not a set of rules. The person who approaches their body with respect and curiosity, who seeks to understand its needs and respond to them, who accepts its changes without judgment, is practicing a form of wisdom that transcends any specific health advice. This wisdom cannot be packaged or sold. It can only be cultivated, moment by moment, day by day, year by year. The integration of knowledge. What modern research has provided is not a new way of living, but a deeper understanding of why traditional ways of living worked. The principles that emerge from this research: protection from excess, adequate nutrition, regular movement, restorative rest, social connection, are not new. They are as old as humanity. What is new is the detailed understanding of how they work, the cellular and molecular mechanisms through which they exert their effects. This understanding can serve as motivation, as confirmation that the simple practices our grandparents knew are supported by science. It can provide guidance when choices are unclear, a framework for deciding among competing options. It can offer reassurance that the effort of maintaining good habits is not wasted, that every small choice really does matter. But the understanding itself is not the point. The point is living well, feeling well, maintaining the ability to do what matters for as long as possible. The point is being present for our own lives, experiencing the fullness of each day, loving and being loved, contributing what we have to offer. The body is the means to these ends, not the end itself. The continuing journey. There is no finish line in this work. No point at which one can declare the body sufficiently supported and stop paying attention. The journey continues as long as life continues. Each day brings new opportunities to make choices that support health, and each choice contributes to the accumulating record that the body keeps. This can sound exhausting if approached as a burden, but it can also be experienced as a kind of freedom, a daily practice of self-care that connects us to ourselves and to the generations who came before. The person who walks each morning is participating in a practice as old as humanity. The person who chooses nourishing food is continuing a tradition that has sustained life for millions of years. The person who rests when tired is honoring a wisdom that every animal knows. The body, in its quiet way, is always teaching. It teaches about balance and excess, about rest and activity, about connection and isolation. It teaches that we are not separate from nature but part of it, subject to its laws and sustained by its provisions. It teaches that life is a gift, finite and precious, to be cared for and appreciated. The face that looks back from the mirror, with all its lines and changes, is not a problem to be solved. It is a record of a life lived, a story told in flesh and bone. The question is not how to make it look different, but how to honor it, how to care for it, how to ensure that the rest of the story it tells is one of vitality, engagement, and peace. That question, finally, is not about skin at all. It is about everything. The body is not an enemy to be conquered or a problem to be solved. It is the ground of all experience, the vessel through which we encounter every joy, every love, every moment of beauty this life has to offer. The single most important takeaway from everything we have explored together is this: the body wants to maintain itself. It has been working toward that goal since the moment you were born, and it will continue working until the very end. Our task is simply to support what it is already trying to do, to provide the conditions it needs, and to listen to what it is telling us. If this conversation has sparked something in you, some curiosity about your own body's story, we would be honored to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if you would like to continue exploring the wisdom of healthy aging, we invite you to browse the library and subscribe so that you never miss a new addition to the archive. This is the Longevity Library. Listen, learn, and live longer.